Can overheating be solved with this new on-camera fan from Smallrig? Now, I decided to run some tests to see if it actually would make that much of a difference. Now, before we dive into all the tests and the different test results, let's just do a quick little rundown here. There's actually two different models. We got the 4348, which is Sony only, and we've got this one here, which is the 4815 that we're testing in this video. The fan mounts to the back of your camera without any tools or any modifications. It's made entirely out of metal and it's held in place with these little plastic brackets here. And you actually get a whole bunch of these different plastic brackets for different camera models. We've got for the Fujifilm X-T4, which we're using in this video, and we also got for the Alpha 6700, the CV1, and a whole bunch of other cameras, pretty much every camera in the Canon R series. But like I said, we will be testing this on my Fujifilm X-T4, which is also on the list of supported cameras, along with the XS10, I believe. Anyway, these brackets hold the fan in place and it's actually very secure. I'm sure you could get it to fall out somehow, but it would probably take a whole lot of effort or maybe some really bad luck. There's no built-in, let me just get these out of the way here. There's no built-in battery on this fan, so you will need some sort of external power source with USB-C, like a power bank that we got here, or maybe a V-mount if you're rigging up your camera and that kind of stuff. But we'll talk more about different powering solutions and power options here in just a minute. Now, once you turn the fan on, it will run at max speed for about 60 seconds before adjusting the speed automatically based on whatever temperature it picks up from your camera. And you can see the current temperature here on this little screen, which I think is kind of neat. It's not the internal temperature, obviously, but it shows you whether the temperature is steady or if it's climbing rapidly. And it will go into standby mode when the temperature reaches 19 degrees Celsius to prevent any internal condensation forming up, which could obviously damage your camera if it gets too cold from the outside. But as soon as the temperature rises, the fan will kick back on again, and that's pretty much it when it comes to functionality. Now, let's look at some of these tests. In my first test, I placed the camera out in the direct sunlight without the fan. The ambient temperature was about 32 degrees Celsius, and I was able to get 40 minutes in 4K 24 frames per second all eye before the camera shut down. This was more of a control, and I actually didn't bother to run a test at 24 frames per second with the fan, and you will see why in just a second here. After letting the camera cool down, I did another test at 4K 60 frames per second, and I was able to record for 10 minutes and 33 seconds before the first warning came up. About 2.5 minutes later, the red warning showed up, and after 21 minutes and 14 seconds, the camera shut down. Allowing the camera to cool down again, I decided to use the downtime to clean up the kitchen. After about 20 minutes, I went back outside and I attached the fan and hit the record button once more. This time I got a different type of warning a few minutes in when the smoke alarm went off inside the house. I will leave the recipe in the description, but keep in mind it's in metric and Celsius, so you don't screw anything up if you want to try this at home. Now, back to the camera and the testing. So this time with the fan running, the yellow temperature warning came on after 12 minutes. An hour later, we were still at the yellow warning, but my test location would soon be in shade, so I decided to stop the recording after 67 minutes, as we still hadn't gotten to the red warning at this point, and I knew the ambient temperature would soon be dropping at this location. Now, before we look at the indoor testing and take a look at all the test results and compare them, let's talk about powering the fan and the noise level. So, the fan is actually reasonably quiet considering the amount of air it needs to move compared to an internal fan. It will get picked up by your camera's internal mics and by any external microphones too. I did some quick tests here. I will be quiet so you can have a listen. But that's kind of the reality of fans, and If you're shooting things like interviews or talking head videos where you do longer takes, you're probably using a lavalier or a boom mic anyway, so it wouldn't be that much of a problem in those situations anyway. And we could actually do a quick little test here in the studio by placing the fan on the top of my camera here in the studio. I got my microphone right up here, and as you know, it will run at full speed for the first 60 seconds. So let's go ahead and plug it in, and I will place it somewhere here on my camera. Okay, so now it's going at full speed and I have it placed on the top of my teleprompter. So the fan is powered over USB-C and has a max draw. Let me just unplug this here. And have a max draw of 12 watts, which means you have to use a power bank or a V-mount with power delivery if you want to be able to run this at full capacity. Now, if you're on sticks, you could always clamp a power bank to your tripod. I do this a lot of times when I'm working with locked off shots. It's kind of a quick way to get more power to your camera. Or you could use something like this, this V-mount plate from Smallrig. If you have a cage on your camera with an Arca base and slap a regular V-mount battery on the back here. And now you got lots of different options. You got USB, you got DC parallel and D-tap and all of those things if you want to be able to power your camera, monitor, and obviously this little fan as well. But now let's take a look at the indoor studio tests. The temperature in my studio was about 22 degrees Celsius, and without the fan I was able to get 20 minutes of 4K 60 DCI before the yellow temperature warning showed up. And after 25 minutes the red warning showed up. That's when I decided to stop the test and let the camera cool down for 15 minutes. Now, with the fan attached, still shooting 4K 60 DCI, the yellow temperature warning showed up at almost exactly 60 minutes. I decided to let the camera continue to run until the card filled up, which was another 23 minutes. So even if I decided to stop the recording before the camera overheated and shut down, the results are pretty clear in these tests. Now, let's take a quick look at pros and cons. So first of all, the build quality of this thing is great. It feels very, very solid, and these brackets do a great job of holding the fan in place. The display on the fan here is also a neat little feature. Even if it won't give you the internal temperature of the camera, it will at least let you gauge what's going on if the temperature is steady or rising or dropping and that kind of stuff. Now, what about cons? Well, now, if you're not using some sort of external battery for your camera already, you obviously need to get that sorted in order for you to run this fan on your camera properly. For those cases, I would recommend looking at those tiltable V-mount plates or that newer power bank plate as well. Or you could use my clamp-on method with a tripod leg and one of these power bank clamps. But I will put some links down below to some of these solutions and a few other options that I would recommend you to take a look at if you're considering getting one of these fans, or if you're just looking for great ways to power your camera rig and that kind of stuff. But that's gonna be it for today, so thank you for stopping by, enjoy the weather, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, bye!